We are now in the middle of chapter 7 of the Tanya, Perek Zayin, of the holy book, the Tanya, which was written by the first Chabad Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, designed to tell the Jewish people what exactly a Jew is and what our obligation and responsibility is to the Creator of the universe. As we learned before in the previous 6 chapters, a Jew is totally different from a non-Jew, and that a Jew is connected to the Creator and, more exactly, to the purpose of creation. Why God created this whole world. Even Adam, the first man, when he was put into the world, he was put into the world to work on the world and to preserve the world. Like it says, Avdol L'Shamra, in other words, to improve the world. Excuse me. In the first 6 days of creation, we say it in Kiddush every Shabbos in the nighttime. When God created the world in 6 days, it says Yom HaShvi, and the 7th day God rested. That God created everything in 6 days, and the 7th day He rested, and the 6 days created Asher Bor Elokim La'asot. So God created everything in the 6 days to do. Excuse me. To do means to fix up. The Jewish people are supposed to be here to fix up the world. What does it mean to fix up the world? What is the world lacking that has to be fixed up? Well, the world is lacking godly order. Now, this idea of godly order is a sort of a paradoxical thing, because God is creating the world all the time, and the world is in the hands of human beings. That's what God put it, especially in the hands of the Jews. And the Jews are supposed to educate the whole world, all the non-Jews also, how to act in tune with the Creator's wishes and to make this world into a perfect place. A place where there will be meaning, a place where there will be all the things that people want. Happiness, joy, prosperity, health. They call it fulfillment, a feeling of accomplishment, a feeling of success. All the things that people want, that's really what God wants. And what God also wants, that we should never be satisfied with these things. We should always strive for more. And that's why God put man into Gan Eden. It was called heaven. Gan Eden is another word for heaven. It was heaven on earth, and God put man here in order to improve it, to make it even better. Of course, we know what happened. Man didn't do it. And that the world became worse. What does it mean that the world became worse? That to the state where we are now, for instance, that there are many people that are certain there's no such thing as God, and that it's even foolish to think that there is such a thing as a creator or a plan for the creation or a reason for the creation. Rather, things are just as they are. And that's what's called concealment. So the Rebbe in this book is trying to tell us that the purpose of the Jewish people was, is, and always will be to improve the world, no matter how perfect the world becomes, no matter how godly, no matter how meaningful the world becomes. There's no end to the amount of meaning, just like there's no end to the Creator. God is called Ein Sof. He's called infinite. It means infinite good. Infinite is not just a metaphysical idea. That means it's separate from the world, exactly the opposite. And what is separate from the world means it's limited to not being worldly. Infinite means that you reveal the essence of good in this physical world as it is right now. The way that God created it. This world is essentially very, very good. It's the best. It's the greatest. But in order to reveal this, we have to think totally differently. We have to have a total different set of values and standards and goal. And that's what this book is desired to do. It's desired to, in essence, to perfect the world, which according to Jewish law, that's only going to happen by means of the Messiah, the Mashiach. Mashiach is going to be a Jew, just like King David, that's going to bring all the Jewish people back to learning the Torah and the commandments and realizing that the Torah and the commandments, even the commandments of the rabbis, are all the will of the Creator right now to make this world into a perfect place. So maybe it could be that how much this is hidden from us, in other words, how this different standard of what God's world is compared to what our world is, possibly the best place to see this, how far away we are from it, is food. usually you think food is food. A person eats, a person is hungry. He wants to eat, so he eats. It depends. Good food is food that's tasty to you. It's healthy for you. Bad food is food that's not tasty or it's not healthy. But here in the Tanya, he gives a totally different definition of what it means, good and bad. Good is what reveals godliness. For instance, the Holy Temple, there God was revealed. Bad is anything that's normal. Anything that's normal. And there's different levels of bad. There's bad that can be fixed up. That's what we learned in the beginning of this chapter. And there's bad that cannot be corrected. That's what we learned in the 6th chapter. But from the normal human eye, and from the normal instruments, there's no instrument that can possibly detect this type of good. There's no way of discerning or feeling in any way the difference between, for instance, Shabbat and the weekdays. The only thing that can feel this is the Jewish soul. A Jewish soul can feel the difference between Shabbat and every other day. A Jewish soul can potentially feel the difference between kosher food and not kosher food. But what type of a Jewish soul? Only a pure Jewish soul, for instance, in the people called tzaddikim, that are able to feel and to this whole different order that God has in making the world of not just the world, but why. So according to the naked eye, there's no difference between Shabbat and a regular day, no difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. There's no difference between kosher food and not kosher food. So you can say, okay, at least on Shabbat, there's a big difference because Shabbat is a day of rest. You rest, so it's a physical difference. And the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew, usually non-Jewish children, they haven't got so much of an interest in learning Torah and doing the commandments. And this, whereas Jewish children sort of talk to them, this is your heritage, this. But kosher food and not kosher food, there's absolutely no difference whatsoever. There's no possible way of knowing the difference between a cow that was slaughtered properly and a cow that wasn't slaughtered properly. Only the big tzaddikim, like I say, could possibly tell the difference between the two of them. They said that there was a great tzaddik that they gave him once milk from an animal that was milked in according to Jewish law, milk that's milked from an animal, from a cow, it has to be observed by a Jew when it's milked to make sure that there was no foreign types of milk that were added in. Milk from a not kosher animal is not kosher milk. So there's supposed to be somebody. They say there's a story about one big tzaddik that they served him milk that happened to be that was milk from a cow that nobody saw it. No Jew person saw it. And this man did not see the milk. He didn't see it. They put it right in front of him and he asked for his milk. And they came and they said, here's the milk. So what are you talking about? I don't see anything. He actually could not see something that was not kosher. This is a very rare thing. But the Rabbi, the first Rabbi of Chabad, could see it, and he wants to tell us that what is the sense in the human being, in the Jew, that can see and feel not kosher food, and kosher food is the Jewish soul. And if all the Jewish souls are woken up, we'll be able to see the difference. But until then, we can't. We have to read it from this book. So that's what the Rebbe is saying. There are 4 types, if you want to call it, of bad. One type can be elevated and brought to good, namely nature, things that do not reveal godliness, your house, your car, your clothes, your money, your food. It says, if the food was kosher food, then it means that it wasn't tied down to the world, and it's possible by means of your proper thought, your proper use of the energy that you get from this food, to elevate the food and put it into its proper place. What does it mean to elevate? I think possibly we talked about this before, but it's like if you're given a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle, and the jigsaw puzzle, you look on the box, it's a jigsaw puzzle, 25,000 pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. You buy it, it's a huge box, amazing for you, the pieces must be pretty big. You open it up, the pieces are pretty small. You realize that instead of 25,000, that there's 1 million pieces there. And the instructions say, 25,000 of these pieces are relevant to the puzzle. All of the rest of the 900 and whatever thousand pieces are not relevant to the puzzle at all. And they all look sort of, all of them have pictures on them and all of them have colors and all of this. Now you have to figure out what is relevant to the puzzle and what's not relevant to the puzzle. God purposely made this world in a way that it's like a puzzle that is confused. When Adam ate from the tree, he confused it even more. The next generation after that, until we came to the generation of the flood, confused the world even more. To the point where now we're in the world, people say there's no such thing as a puzzle. There's nothing to put together. You just do whatever you want to. There's no bad and there's no good. All the pieces are the same. Do whatever you want to. You want to be religious? Be religious. You don't want to be religious? Don't be religious. Some people have religious needs. They have religious drives, right? They have complexes. They have neuroses that they can only solve by having this belief in a superior being. If that makes you feel good, do it. But as far as there really is actually a creator that gave us the responsibility of putting this puzzle together, we don't see it whatsoever. That's why we have this book. And that's supposed to be the job of the Jews. The Jewish people are chosen to tell everyone in the world that they have a purpose. The Jews are chosen to tell all the non-Jews that they're also chosen. Every person is chosen to be who he is. God is creating every single person, every Jew, every non-Jew, every single second brand new with intention. With intention. A Jew has a job to inform the world, to put the world in place. And non-Jews, as being part of the world, they have a job also to fix the world up, the physical things in the world, to fix up the world. But first of all, the Jews have to get themselves together, right? A doctor can't operate if he hasn't got clean instruments, right? An astronomer, he can't see the stars if his telescope is dirty. Right? If we want to fix up the world and tell the world what's going on, we have to clean ourselves up first. What are the instruments to clean up the world? Says the Rabbi, if a person eats kosher food and he drinks kosher wine, but he eats it in a not kosher way, in other words, he doesn't eat pork, but he eats like a pig, but he eats kosher food, 100% kosher, the food is good, the food is correct, it was slaughtered properly, he says the blessings before and after, but he eats it with tremendous desire. He eats it with his hands, or even worse, he doesn't even use his hands. He sticks his face in to the cholent, and he eats the cholent. He quaffs it down, and he's really satisfied, tremendously satisfied, happiest person you could possibly have, right? He takes his strammel off first so it doesn't get dirty, and he just eats. This is his big day, Shabbos or Yom Tov, eats the food. So says the Rebbe, if a person eats in such a way, we're on the bottom of page 22. As his desire, his lust that he has for this food, for this cholent, for whatever he eats, even that it's kosher and he's a nice person and he's an intelligent person, he's a rabbi and he's a religious rabbi and he's an Orthodox rabbi, but he loses himself and he eats this food like an animal. And he says, let's take it from the period. There's a period, the bedichuta. First word in line is the bedichuta. It is 7 lines from the bottom of the page. Ach, mi shehu bezoli basar. A person who quaffs, quaffs meat. The sova yayin, or quaffs wine. I don't know, what do you say? Quaff is some sort of an English word. Anyway, a person who stuffs himself with meat and he guzzles wine, lamalais taivos gufo, in order to fill the desires of his body, the nefesh Bahamis, and his animal soul, his natural soul. Shehu bechinat yesod mind, that this desire that he has, this is what we said in the first chapter of the Tanya, is the foundation, the element of water from the 4 elements, the bad, selfish elements which are in the person, in his soul. Shemimena, that from the element of water comes taiva, desires, lust. So this man is a religious person, and he's an Orthodox Jew, and he knows everything, but he says, listen, I deserve a little for myself. And he starts to eat this meat, and it's kosher meat, and he's saying, the sake of the holy Shabbos, and he's eating. So because he's eating this with such tremendous lust, and he's totally lost himself, and he's not thinking anything whatsoever about God, and if he is, he's fooling himself totally, because the way that he's eating has absolutely nothing to do with anything except for himself. He's deciding, he's calling all the shots. So he says, because nichla lefisha, therefore because he is eating with such lust, temporarily, the wine and the meat which is inside of him transforms between complete bad, completely selfishness. And what has he done? He has said, I am God. I am the holy temple. This meat is the sacrifice. And he eats. And he eats, and it works. And it works. He eats and he's satisfied and he feels great. Just like in the time of the holy temple, it says that you'd make a sacrifice. It was reach nichoach lifnei Hashem. It was a pleasant smell to God. Pleasant smell. And Rashi says, one of the explainers of the Torah, Rashi, reach nichoach nachat ruach shamarti v'naseh ratzoni. God gets pleasure when he says something and do what he wants. And now when I say something and I do what I want, it gives me pleasure. I'm God. That's how God feels. You feel real. It's a real feeling. Here I am. Right? There's no question about it. You can't deny it. I feel good. So temporarily, the energy from this food descends into Ra Gamor, into complete selfishness. Ra and the Tanya is selfishness. Shebeshlosh klipos atameos, in the three unclean, defiled klipot, the shells, as we learned in the previous chapter what these three are. V'gufo naseh lem lavush, and your body becomes a guest house, a garment, or merkava, and a vehicle, lefisha, temporarily, right? I ate that food, I feel really great now, I feel good. In other words, I did what I wanted to, and it worked, I succeeded. Therefore, you become separate at that moment from your whole purpose in the creation of the world. So to speak, you took one of those 990 whatever's million, the 100,000 pieces that have no relevance to the puzzle, and you stuck them in the puzzle. You stuck them in the puzzle. Now try to make things good. Now let's see if you can figure out the puzzle. Now it's going to be really hard to put everything together because nothing's going to really fit. Until a person goes back and he returns to serving God la Torato. Until a person says, hey, I made a mistake, let's get rid of these pieces, let's start searching for the right pieces, let's learn Torah, let's do mitzvahs. I'm going to try not to eat like that again. Why? How can it raise up? How can it raise up? It says, Lifi, because shahaya basar heter, because the meat was permissible. But yayin kosher, and the wine was kosher. Lakach, therefore, yochlim lachzor, he can return, v'lalot imo, and go back with him, b'shuvu la'avodas Hashem, when he returns to serve God again. Shazeo, this is what it means, heter or mutter. That's what it means, it's permissible. In other words, he didn't exactly take pieces that have nothing to do with the puzzle and try to put them in. He took pieces that have what to do with the puzzle. This is kosher wine, but he tried to stick it in the wrong place. He tried to put it in a different place, a place where it doesn't belong. As soon as he says, well, what have I done? And he takes these pieces and he puts them where they're supposed to be. In other words, the energy from this meat and the energy from this wine, I'm going to use to serve God. Instead of taking it and saying, now I feel really good, let me go out in the street and do whatever I want to, or I'll just go to sleep and just do what I want, whatever I feel. He says, wow, I ate all this meat, I ate all this wine, I did it in a very animalistic way. Now I'm going to use the energy to learn Torah, to do good deeds, to help other people, to do the commandments. Because that this meat was permissible, therefore it can be put in the right place. That's the whole meaning of the word permissible in Hebrew. Mutar. Mutar, kalomar. She'eno kashur. Mutar means, it's permissible, means free. Free. Eno kashur, it is not tied, ve'asur, and bound, biyadei achitzonim, in external forces, in something external to God. It says, Ein ben cherut elomi she'osik b'Torah, she'ne'amar charut al haluchot. Says there's no one who's really free except for a person who learns the Torah. Why are you really free if you learn the Torah? Because if you learn the Torah, then you're free from mistakes. You can be free from mistakes, and you're also free to return to your Creator, to put yourself in the proper place where you're supposed to be. You're free to turn from bad, and you're free to do good. A normal person that thinks he's going to be free, let's say from the Torah, he doesn't want to have free. So good, you're free from the Torah, you're free from God. But what are you free to? What are you free to? That's not called freedom. Being free from, that's not true freedom. Free to, that's true freedom. When the Jews got out of Egypt, so it's true they were free from Egypt. But Moses never said to Pharaoh, just free the Jews. He said, God said, free the Jews so they should serve me. Shalach et ami v'yavduni. Free the Jews that they should serve me. There was a bill, a 10 shekel bill or something in Israel. And it had quoted on there, Shalach et ami, let my people go. And that's not what God said. God didn't say, let my people go. It's a famous song in America, right? It used to be when I was a kid, let my people go, right? Moses said down in Egypt land or something, let my people go. But that's not what he said. He didn't say, let my people go. That's only half of the sentence. He said, let my people go so they should serve me. Shalach et ami v'yavduni. There's freedom from and there's freedom to. When a person is free from, it's wonderful. But free to is a whole different story. I think I told the joke before, I don't remember. I once saw a cartoon. Cartoon with a bunch of hippies, a bunch of, anarchists, and they're all standing with long hair and long the gowns or whatever they had, and then wild looks on their faces, and they have these signs that say freedom of speech, freedom of speech. And all the signs are laying on the ground. They finished their protest. Their leader is standing up on a stage in front of them, and he's saying, so one caption, he said, I have good news and bad news. The good news is the government has granted us freedom to speak, freedom of speech, total freedom of speech. The bad news is we have nothing to say. In other words, it's the freedom from is good. Now you have freedom from any restrictions, but what are you freedom to? What are you supposed to do? It's the same thing. A person, when he eats kosher food, so he's freed, the food has been freed from bad. From bad. But what's it free to? That depends on you, what you're going to do with it. That's why the Torah is called true freedom. Because the Torah frees you to. It tells you what you should do in the world, what your real purpose is supposed to be in the world, how you can really find happiness, fulfillment. And of course, happiness and fulfillment does not mean that you become, how do you say, homeostasis. You become like placid, like a sea, and that there's no problems and no worries. Exactly the opposite. Happiness means you feel that you're important and that you have a job and that you have a tremendous responsibility to the Creator to make the world a better place. But you can't see this all the time that you're tied and bound to yourself. So it says that's because the meat was mutter, kolomer, she'enu kashur, third line. It is not tied, asur, and bound in the hands of the chitzonim, in the hands of the powers of selfishness. Shelo yochal, that it's not able, lachzor, to go back and raise up to God. Period. And that we're going to learn in the next chapter. What happens if, God forbid, a person unknowingly eats not kosher food? There we're going to really see the difference between God's order of the world and our order of the world. Something you would never believe. You would never believe. In the next chapter, in the 8th chapter, we're going to learn that if a person eats not kosher food and he thinks that it's kosher, he's been fooled. And he's a big rabbi and he sits and he learns and he does Torah. Nevertheless, he took one of the pieces of the puzzle that doesn't belong there. No matter what he does, no matter how much he does it, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. He can't do it. Who sees it's not going to work? Only God can see it. And maybe the big tzaddikim can see it also. Shelo yochol, it's not tied down to powers of selfishness that it can't go up to Hashem. Period. But if a person has eaten like an animal, and afterwards he says, wow, I don't want to be an animal, I want to be a human being. Even more, I want to be a Jew. and I'm going to serve the Creator. I have an obligation not just to life. I have an obligation, a living obligation, valid to the Creator every single second. The Torah, the commandments. So he returns the energy back to God. Right? There's only one problem. Harashimo mimeno nishar baguf. Here is a little bit difference between, this is where my comparison to the puzzle sort of falls apart. What do we say? If a person eats not kosher food, and he does it in the name of God, that's going to be in the 8th chapter, is he took one of the pieces, one of the 900,000 whatever pieces, and he tried to put it into the puzzle and he refuses to leave it. He refuses to take it away. That means no matter what he thinks, he's messing up the whole puzzle. If a person eats kosher food but eats in the wrong way, it's like taking a piece of the puzzle and putting it in the wrong place. Right? You put it in the wrong place. He's a Jew, and he's this and that, but he all of a sudden decides he wants to go against God. He wants to, a little bit. So it's true, he's a Jew, and everything is okay, and God will forgive him, and God loves him, and everything, but he's put himself in the wrong place. He's doing the wrong actions, the wrong deeds, So, but what happens when this person, he decides he wants to put the piece back? He wants to put the world into order. I don't want to go according to my order. I'm going to go according to God's order. So he says, I'm going to take this energy that I got from eating the food, and I'm going to put it in the right place. I'm going to learn, I'm going to daven, I'm going to do proper things, I'm going to love other people, I'm going to help other people. I'll do what it says in the Torah, what I'm supposed to do in the Torah. But the only problem is that when he does that, a trace is left in him. What's the trace? I was God. I was the holy temple. I made a sacrifice to myself. I ate that meat the way I wanted to, and I liked it. That liking makes a little trace inside of you. That the person still feels, whether he knows it or not, that, in the end, I have a place to go back to. I know who I am. I'm the one who enjoyed that meat. I like that meat, right? Even though that he knows it's wrong, and he realizes it's not a good thing, but he still always has that little trace. It's always there inside of him. How can he get rid of this trace? Al kain, therefore, tzorech haguf l'chibut hakever. Therefore, after a person dies, he has to have what's called the traceling, the thrashing around in the grave. The worms eat him up. Other things happen when a person's in the grave. This comes to get rid of his mistake that he had, or his certainty, false certainty, that he felt a little bit that he was God. He felt that, I can do whatever I want to. When a person's in the grave, all of a sudden the worms come and eat him up, and he starts to realizing, maybe I'm not God. Maybe I'm a little bit wrong. Worms don't eat up God. Worms, all of a sudden, where did I get these worms? Because of the pleasures that he had in the world. Commotion, like we're going to learn later on. Which is not the case if a person eats forbidden food, or has forbidden sexual relations, that they stem from, like we learned in the previous chapter, what are called 3 totally forbidden shells. Like we said, like to go back to our comparison, they come from those pieces of the puzzle that have absolutely nothing to do with the puzzle. It'll just confuse everybody and wreck the puzzle up. These things are tied down, bound and tied, in the hands of the powers of selfishness, of separateness forever. You did it, you eat not kosher food, you did it, that's it, finished. And this will never go up from their place. Ad ki yavo yamam, until the day comes, and death is swallowed up forever. It says Adam, before he ate from the tree, there was no death in the world. Again, when the Jewish people, when God revealed himself on Mount Sinai, there was no death in the world. In other words, death is really an extra thing in the world. It's really a big lie. There can be no such thing as death. God is everywhere. God creates everything. There's no place empty from God. And God is pure life. If so, how can there be death? The answer is death exists, but is a lie. The biggest lie that there can be. But it's not true. Not true. But we see that it is true. There's even laws what to do with a dead person. Right? What to do? This is a question. When Mashiach comes, eventually the world will be more and more pure, and there won't be any more death. Then we'll understand what happened, how this whole exile that we had, the Holocaust and the terrible things, there was all just a big, terrible, awesome